The coffee machine in the break room was louder than usual that Tuesday morning, which is probably why Chad Castillo and Dennis Ross didn't hear me coming. I was just reaching for my favorite mug, the one with World's Best Engineer that my niece had given me for my birthday, when I heard my name mentioned through the thin walls of the conference room next door. Sierra Collins is asking for a raise again. Chad's voice carried clearly through the wall. As VP of Engineering at TechFlow Solutions, his opinion carried significant weight with the board, and I'd been waiting 3 months for his response to my formal request. How much this time? Dennis Ross, our CEO, sounded irritated, like I was some persistent mosquito buzzing around his ear. 20%. She's citing her work on the new data compression algorithm and the client retention numbers from last quarter. I froze, my hand halfway to the coffee pot. The algorithm they were discussing wasn't just any project. It was my breakthrough. 3 months of sleepless nights, countless iterations, debugging sessions that lasted until dawn, and a solution that would revolutionize how our company processed client data. The same algorithm that had already attracted interest from 2 major competitors trying to poach me with offers I hadn't even told my manager about. "She's not worth the raise," Dennis said flatly, his tone as cold as the Seattle rain outside. "The algorithm is company property anyway. She was paid to develop it. That's what her salary is for." My hands trembled as I set down my empty mug, the ceramic clinking against the counter. Company property. After 6 years of dedication, 60-hour weeks, missed family dinners, and innovations that had saved them millions in operational costs, this was how they saw me. Just another expendable employee whose contributions could be dismissed with a wave of the hand. "What if she threatens to leave?" Chad asked, and I could hear the concern in his voice. At least someone understood my value. Dennis laughed, a cold, dismissive sound that made my stomach turn. "Where's she going to go? She's comfortable here. She has her routine, her little corner office, her predictable paycheck. Besides, we own everything she creates. She knows that. She signed the contract." I backed away from the break room, my heart pounding so hard I was sure the entire office could hear it. They had no idea I was listening. No idea that their casual dismissal of my worth was about to become the biggest mistake of their corporate lives. "Plus," Dennis continued, his voice growing more animated, "she's a woman in tech. She should be grateful for what we're paying her. Do you know how many companies would even give her a chance at her level?" That was the moment everything changed. The moment 6 years of loyalty and dedication evaporated like morning mist. Back at my desk, I pulled up the employment contract I'd signed 6 years ago, back when I was fresh out of MIT with my master's in computer science and hungry to prove myself. My fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, searching for the intellectual property clauses I'd barely glanced at during my eager signing session. There it was. Section 7.3. All inventions, discoveries, and improvements created during employment hours using company resources belong to TechFlow Solutions. Standard corporate language that I'd accepted without question. But as I read more carefully, examining each subsection with the attention to detail that had made me an exceptional engineer, a smile began to form on my face. The algorithm wasn't developed during company hours. Those sleepless nights, they were at home, on weekends, in my personal apartment, using my own laptop and development environment. The breakthrough moment had come at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, in my kitchen, fueled by my own coffee and determination, while debugging code I'd written on my personal GitHub account. I grabbed my phone and called my friend Victoria Morales, a patent attorney who'd been telling me for years to protect my innovations. We'd met at a Women in Tech networking event 3 years ago, and she'd become both a trusted advisor and a close friend. "Victoria, I need to file a patent application. Today." "Sierra, what's the rush? You sound stressed." "I'll explain later. How fast can we move on this? If it's truly urgent, and you have all the documentation, I can file a provisional application by end of day. But Sierra, this sounds serious. Are you sure about this? Patent applications aren't cheap, and if this is work-related, there could be complications." I looked across the office at Chad's corner office, where he was probably still discussing my worthlessness with Dennis, completely unaware that their conversation had just triggered a chain of events that would cost them millions. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Victoria. This is my work, developed on my own time, and I'm done letting them profit from my intelligence while treating me like I'm disposable. Okay, but I need documentation. Timestamps, development logs, anything that proves independent development. I have everything. Git commits, personal email chains, even photos of my whiteboard from home. I document everything, remember? That's why you're going to be rich someday, Sierra. Send me everything you have. We're going to war. Victoria worked her magic faster than I'd expected. By Thursday, my provisional patent application was filed, giving me 12 months to complete the full application while establishing my priority date. The algorithm was officially mine, protected by the United States Patent and Trademark Office. The beauty of a provisional patent is its discretion. TechFlow Solutions had no idea what was coming. To them, I was still just Sierra Collins, the undervalued engineer who should be grateful for her paycheck. I spent the weekend documenting everything with the thoroughness that had made me successful in my career. Every iteration of the algorithm, every breakthrough moment, every timestamp showing the work was done on my personal time. My apartment felt like a war room, with printouts and timelines covering every surface. My dining table transformed into a command center. The paper trail was extensive. Git commits on my personal repository dating back 8 months. Email conversations with my college roommate, Emily Sanders, who was now working at Google, where I'd described my weekend coding sessions. Even grocery receipts for the energy drinks and coffee that had fueled my late-night innovation sessions. Monday morning arrived with the usual Seattle drizzle, but I walked into the office with a new sense of purpose, knowing I held cards that Dennis and Chad couldn't even imagine. The same gray cubicle walls and fluorescent lighting that had depressed me for months now seemed temporary, like a movie set I'd soon be leaving behind. Sierra, do you have a minute? Aaron Collins, our head of development, waved me over. Aaron was one of the few people in management I actually respected. He'd always treated me fairly, recognizing my contributions when others took credit, and he had a reputation for promoting based on merit rather than politics. Of course, Aaron. What's up? I heard through the grapevine that you're asking for a raise. I wanted you to know that I've been advocating for you with the board. Your work on the compression algorithm is exceptional. Honestly, it's some of the best code I've seen in 20 years in this industry. I felt a pang of guilt. Aaron was genuinely trying to help, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface of corporate politeness. I appreciate that, Aaron. Really. But I'm starting to think my future might lie elsewhere. His expression shifted to concern, the kind of look a good manager gets when they realize they're about to lose valuable talent. Sierra, don't make any hasty decisions. You're invaluable to this company. Your algorithm is going to transform our competitive position. Let me talk to Dennis again. Maybe go over his head to the board if necessary. Thanks. But I don't think Dennis sees my value the same way you do. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's made his position on my worth very clear. What do you mean? I hesitated, then decided Aaron deserved honesty. Let's just say I've learned some things about how management really views my contributions. It's been eye-opening. That afternoon, I received an email from Barbara Johnson, our HR director, requesting a meeting. The subject line read, "Compensation discussion, confidential." The meeting was scheduled for 3 p.m. in her office, the same sterile conference room where I'd had my last performance review, where I'd been told I was meeting expectations, despite revolutionizing our data processing capabilities. I arrived at Barbara's office to find Chad already there, wearing his practiced corporate smile and his most expensive suit. The power play was obvious. Bring in the big guns to intimidate the uppity engineer. "Sierra, please sit down," Barbara began, her voice artificially warm. "Chad and I have been discussing your raise request, and we'd like to present you with a counteroffer." "I'm listening." Chad leaned forward, his tone patronizing in the way that made my skin crawl. "We're prepared to offer you a 5% increase, effective immediately. We also want to discuss your algorithm work. The company is very pleased with your innovation, and we're considering putting you on some high-visibility projects." 5%? I couldn't hide my disbelief. "Chad, my algorithm is about to generate millions in revenue. I've run the numbers. It will reduce our processing costs by 40% and allow us to handle 3 times our current client load. Competitors are already trying to license similar technology." "Now, Sierra," Barbara interjected, pulling out a folder thick with legal documents. "You need to remember that any work product created during your employment belongs to TechFlow Solutions. We're being generous with this offer, considering your level of experience and the current market conditions. I stood up, my decision crystallizing like a chemical reaction reaching its inevitable conclusion. I need some time to think about this. Of course, Chad said, clearly believing he'd won. But don't take too long. Opportunities like this don't last forever. And Sierra, we value loyalty here. I'd hate to see you make a decision you'd regret. As I left the meeting, I texted Victoria, "How quickly can I resign without violating any agreements?" Her response came within minutes. "Given your patent filing, you can resign immediately. Standard 2 weeks notice." "But are you sure about this? Do you have another job lined up?" I stared at my phone, looking out at the Seattle skyline through the office windows, then typed back, "I'm about to create my own opportunity." The next morning, I submitted my resignation letter to Barbara Johnson. 2 weeks notice. Professional and courteous. Written in the same formal style I'd used for technical documentation. I didn't mention the patent. Didn't explain my real reasons for leaving. Didn't give them any ammunition to use against me. I simply stated that I was pursuing other opportunities and would ensure a smooth transition of my responsibilities. The reaction was swift and predictable, like watching a chemistry experiment where you know exactly what compounds will form. Dennis Ross called me into his office within an hour, his usual arrogance replaced by something that looked almost like panic. "Sierra, this is quite sudden. Are you sure you want to make this decision? You've been with us for 6 years. That's a lot of institutional knowledge to walk away from." "I'm sure, Dennis. It's time for me to move on." "Is this about the raise? Because we can certainly revisit that discussion. Maybe we were too hasty in our initial assessment." I almost laughed. 24 hours ago, I wasn't worth a decent raise. Now, faced with my departure, suddenly everything was negotiable. It was like watching someone realize they'd thrown away a winning lottery ticket. It's not about the money anymore, Dennis. It's about respect and recognition. I've made my decision. Well, I hope you understand that you can't take any proprietary information with you. All your work here belongs to TechFlow Solutions. We'll need to do a thorough review of your computer and files. Of course, I would never violate my employment agreement. And I wouldn't. The algorithm was mine, developed on my own time, but I'd be careful not to take any company documents or violate any legitimate confidentiality agreements. I'd learned to navigate corporate legal language better than most lawyers. Dennis leaned back in his chair, studying me with new interest. "Can I ask where you're going? One of our competitors?" "No, Dennis. I'm not going to a competitor." "Then what are you planning to do?" I smiled, enjoying the confusion on his face. "I'm going to start my own company." Over the next 2 weeks, I quietly transferred my active projects to colleagues, documented my work with the same meticulous attention to detail that had made me successful, and prepared for my departure. The atmosphere in the office grew increasingly tense as word spread about my resignation. Colleagues who had barely acknowledged me before were suddenly stopping by my desk to express their surprise and wish me well. Aaron Collins took me to lunch during my final week at our usual spot, a small cafe near the office that served the best Vietnamese PHO in the city. "Sierra, I have to ask, are you really going to start your own company? That's incredibly risky, especially in this economy." "Yes, Aaron, I am." "Do you have funding lined up? Because if you need investors, I might be able to make some introductions." I smiled, appreciating his genuine concern and support. "I have something better than funding, Aaron. I have intellectual property." The confusion on his face was clear, but I couldn't explain further. Not yet. What kind of intellectual property? The kind that's going to change everything. My last day at TechFlow Solutions was a Friday. There was a small goodbye gathering in the break room, the same break room where I'd overheard the conversation that changed everything. Brad Cooper from accounting made a speech about my contributions. Sierra Collins from marketing gave me a card signed by half the office, and several colleagues wished me well with genuine warmth. Chad Castillo was notably absent, probably still trying to figure out how to replace 6 years of institutional knowledge and breakthrough innovations. As I packed my personal items, the MIT diploma, family photos, the world's best engineer mug, Victoria called with exciting news. "Sierra, I've been doing some research on potential applications for your algorithm. The market size is even bigger than we initially thought. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry that's ripe for disruption. Actually, Victoria, I've been thinking about manufacturing applications. What if we could create a product that demonstrates the algorithm's capabilities? That's brilliant. Show, don't just tell. But you'll need capital for that. Have you thought about how you're going to fund development? I have some savings, and I've been exploring options. There's a startup accelerator in San Francisco that specializes in tech innovations. They have a program specifically for women entrepreneurs with patent-protected technology. I'm applying next week. Perfect. And Sierra? I've been thinking about the licensing potential. Once you have a working product, you could license the technology to multiple companies. Create recurring revenue streams. As I walked out of TechFlow Solutions for the last time, carrying a small cardboard box with my personal belongings, I felt a mixture of nervousness and exhilaration. The security of a steady paycheck was gone, but for the first time in years, I felt truly free. The Seattle rain had stopped, and actual sunlight was breaking through the clouds, a rare sight that felt like a good omen. 6 months later, I was sitting in a conference room in Palo Alto, watching TechFlow Solutions' legal team squirm as their lawyers explained why they couldn't use their algorithm. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was now the one in the position of power, dictating terms to the company that had dismissed my worth. My startup, Quantum Compression Technologies, had not only secured funding from the accelerator, but had also caught the attention of 3 major investors. Our prototype device, built around my patented algorithm, was already generating interest from Fortune 500 companies. We'd landed initial contracts with Amazon, Microsoft, and a Fortune 100 financial services company that I couldn't name due to confidentiality agreements. Ms. Collins, said Mark Thomas, TechFlow's head attorney, a man whose hourly rate probably exceeded my old monthly salary. We need to discuss the intellectual property dispute regarding the compression algorithm. There's no dispute, Mark. The patent is mine. I developed it on my own time, using my own resources, with my own equipment. Your company had every opportunity to recognize its value and compensate me appropriately. Dennis Ross looked older than I remembered. Stress lines etched around his eyes, his usual confident demeanor replaced by something that looked like desperation. Sierra, surely we can work something out. You were part of our team when this was developed. We invested in your education, your development as an engineer. I was part of your team when you decided I wasn't worth a raise, I replied calmly, my voice steady despite the satisfaction coursing through my veins. I was part of your team when you said I was comfortable and wouldn't leave. I was part of your team when you assumed you owned everything I created simply because I happened to work for you. Chad Castillo finally spoke up, his voice lacking its usual arrogance. We're prepared to offer you a licensing deal. Very generous terms. We're talking about a 7-figure agreement. I smiled, remembering his patronizing tone from months ago, the way he dismissed my worth as if I were a child asking for candy. I'm sure you are, Chad, but I'm not interested in licensing to TechFlow Solutions. What do you want? Dennis asked, desperation creeping into his voice like water through a cracked foundation. I want you to understand that talent has value. I want you to recognize that innovation requires respect, not just a paycheck. And I want you to know that your biggest competitor just signed an exclusive licensing deal with my company. The silence in the room was deafening. You could hear the air conditioning humming, the distant sound of traffic outside, the nervous shuffling of papers. Sierra Collins, the woman who wasn't worth the raise, had just locked TechFlow Solutions out of the most significant advancement in data compression technology in years. Tyler Nguyen, TechFlow's current head of engineering, Aaron's replacement after he'd been promoted, leaned forward with the eager expression of someone trying to salvage a sinking ship. Sierra, what would it take to license the technology to us? We're prepared to discuss substantial compensation. I stood up, gathering my materials, patent documents, licensing agreements, financial projections that showed my little startup was already valued at $50 million. That conversation should have happened 8 months ago, Tyler. You had a chance to keep me, to value my contributions, to build something together. Instead, you chose to dismiss my worth and assume I'd never have the courage to leave. We made a mistake, Dennis said, his voice barely above a whisper. We underestimated your potential. No, Dennis. You underestimated my worth. There's a difference. As I reached the door, I turned back one final time, savoring the moment like a fine wine. Oh, and Dennis? Victoria Morales, my patent attorney, wanted me to tell you that she's available if you ever need legal representation. She's quite expensive, but I'm sure you understand. She's worth every penny. The door closed behind me with a satisfying click, like the sound of a vault locking. Outside, the California sun was shining, and my phone was buzzing with messages from investors, partners, and former colleagues who'd heard the news. Aaron Collins, now CTO at a different company, had texted, "Saw the announcement about your licensing deal. Proud of you. Coffee soon?" I smiled, typing back, "Absolutely. I'm buying. My treat." Emily Sanders from Google had sent a message. "Girl, you're officially a badass entrepreneur now. When's the IPO?" As I drove back to my office, a real office now, with a team of 12 brilliant engineers, a waiting list of companies wanting to license our technology, and a product roadmap that would revolutionize data processing across multiple industries, I reflected on the journey. They thought I was just another comfortable employee who would never leave. They thought my innovations belonged to them by default. They thought I wasn't worth the raise. They were wrong on all counts. My company now employed former TechFlow Solutions engineers who'd left to join us, offering them equity stakes and the kind of respect they'd never received at their old company. We were disrupting the entire industry, and we were just getting started. Sometimes the best revenge isn't making a scene or burning bridges. Sometimes it's quietly building something better, protecting your worth, and letting success speak for itself. My name is Sierra Collins, and I'm worth every penny. Patent pending, company thriving, and future unlimited.